My name is Andrea McDorman. I will be sharing a story from an article I chose that is based off of having to live in the conditions of what can be considered the bare minimum. A story about living in an environment where you have little causing you to appreciate much. At the age of 2, my parents divorced, and my mom worked very hard to make ends meet. Although she worked hard, she always made time with my older sister Lauren and I. She read us bedtime stories like the Boxcar Children, and we always said our prayers together before bed. If she was not working, you can guarantee she was always with us. There were times she would go out of her way to try to do something special for us, even though we had little. For instance, we would take a trip to McDonald's and we would all split a Happy Meal. When my sister and I were finished, our mom would then finish what we did not eat. There were times we only had grits in the house and I had to learn to eat what I was given even if I didn't like it, but my mom and God always made sure we had what was necessary to get by. I miss the simplicity of those moments spent in my life, and through it I learned to have greater appreciation for what I now have. My mom, when I was 9 years old, remarried. My stepfather had a good job, and oftentimes we were able to get pretty much anything we wanted, though it wasn't a happily ever after kind of ending, but that's beside the point. I learned what it was like to live with much compared to little, and it made me appreciate those extra materialistic things much greater. Shopping for school clothes at department stores rather than getting the hand-me-downs was considered a luxury, although I was appreciative of the hand-me-downs. I was then able to have more of a selection and sort of pick out whatever I wanted within reason, and felt like I got to step inside of a fashion magazine trying on all sorts of clothes, picking out what I liked best. What was normal for most was considered a dream come true for me. Melanie Scheller, in her article on the meaning of plumbing and poverty, wrote about what it was like to go from living in the bare minimum with a roof over her head for her family, but no indoor plumbing with very little, and then write about the first time she experienced living in such luxurious conditions of being able to use a commode and shower anytime she wanted, and how exciting it was to have the opportunity to live that way, which was considered normal for those around her. It was like she needed to contain her excitement, because nobody could really share the excitement with her without the understanding of what it was like to grow up in the environment she had. This article is about a personal experience the author has been through and how it has given her a sense of empathy for those who have shared a similar experience as a citizen that has had to live in the realm of poverty. The main ideas of this article include the way living in poverty makes you feel set apart as a member in the community, with the way others view where one in those conditions must have come from, and what the reasoning may be for living in such an environment. In this article, Scheller states how working with an elderly woman triggered a memory that reminded her of how she lived in conditions in which she did not have the luxury of running water, as the elderly woman she mentions continually flushed the toilet as if she were experiencing seeing the toilet flush for the first time. For a resident of a nursing home with Alzheimer's disease, it is likely she was in a state of confusion, thinking she was still in the time setting when toilets were uncommon unless she lived in a family that was wealthy, and so it intrigued her. From this article, one can also understand how living in poor conditions can oftentimes not be a choice, but rather a condition in which you can be born into. Scheller mentioned her mother was a widow raising 6 children. The mother and the children did not desire to live this way, but had to adapt and accept that they would have to make things work on their own since the main provider, whom was her father, was deceased. Later in the article, the author mentioned she had left for college and experienced living with installed plumbing for the first time, and it made her appreciative. Several things can be learned from someone who has had to live in poverty, with the main idea of the story being don't judge a book by its cover. I would not change anything about this reading. The author does well expressing her view of poverty in this article. She is able to pull in the audience to understand where she comes from and opens a new perspective towards how it is important to treat others with kindness, criticize less, and appreciate things more. So in conclusion, just like I previously mentioned, my mom and dad divorced when I was 2 and my older sister was 4. My mother did not choose to have to live on what some, may consider the line of poverty, with living in low-income apartments, while some days we waited for the food bus to come give us lunch. My mother left my father to protect us from the way my father had become at that time in his life, and she wanted what was best for us. Materialistic things are not as important as the welfare of one emotionally and psychologically. The point is not to point fingers at why someone looks different than you if they have less and look like they have less. We should consider that most likely the person did not choose to live that way, but rather a choice had to be made due to circumstances that sometimes life just throws at you. When life gives you lemons, you make lemonade. The things that occur in life are not always pretty, but if we learn to appreciate and look at the good in those moments, we will value what we are given much greater. If we choose to do our best to work through the hard times, there is oftentimes a reward in the end. Life is just a bunch of seasons we go through. It's a matter of continuing to keep moving forward. For Melanie Scheller, she chose to do good in her education and go to college, which opened doors for living in ways that she had only imagined she could when she was younger, and it made her appreciate things far greater than some others that have not had to experience things she's had to go through. I chose after I graduated to work hard, and now I'm in college with phlebotomy certification under my belt while I wait for the opportunity to become a nurse. Life sometimes deals us things that seem unfair, but if we learn to appreciate what it gives us, we can look past what we don't have and appreciate things that we do. Even if sometimes all that there is our family, and the fact we can at least have something to put in our bellies and a roof to protect us from the rain. Melanie Scheller shares her story in the article on the meaning of plumbing and poverty about how living in conditions of having little does not make you less of a person, but rather someone who values more. I have a photo of a young boy that I helped sponsor. This is Isaac Matite. Isaac is a friendly, outgoing, playful, and confident child from Luvumbu, Malawi. He is in good health and lives with his parents and siblings in a home made of brick with a grass roof near a road. They obtain water from a community source, but do not have electricity or running water. His favorite color is green, and his favorite food is nasima, cornmeal dough with fish. He contributes home by cleaning and carrying water and wood. In his spare time, he enjoys playing games, ball, soccer, and with action figures. He has a pet dog. When he grows up, he hopes to be a teacher. So Isaac may not have a lot of the things that most have access to in America, but he appreciates all the things that he does have. He talks about his dog, how he likes to play soccer, and his favorite food. With the financial support I help give, though, he is also able to be provided medical care, school supplies, and education. Isaac mentions that his hope is to be a teacher one day. Like Melanie Scheller was able to experience the joys and the simplicity of having her dream fulfilled of going to college and experiencing the ability to support herself and have access to running water, Isaac is also able to experience the joy of being helped through school to have the opportunity to have his dream come true of being a teacher one day. In the story shared by Melanie Scheller in her article, we can learn that sometimes something that means little to others may mean a great deal more to someone else. If I can tell you 3 things that you can take from this article, it would be that we must accept what we are given, have an attitude of thankfulness, and display understanding and kindness for all those around us.